you have to call your dad and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, by the way, I'm in Santa Monica and I need a ride home." Really, really awkward ride home for my dad, but he got over it. But yeah, that's one of those things where they catch you in your bullshit, and you're like, "Yeah, I fucked up."
We had, kind of think of the whole dazed and confused. Same thing. Little did I know when I was 16, just a mere 2 years later, I'd be playing. Yeah, because this is when they headlined in Queens. And clearly, there's no way, they're ever going to come back together. And
No.
even if they were toying around with the idea of having Getty and Alex bring in a drummer, I think they kind of squashed that. In the last few months. But who's to say?
Yeah.
They may do something different, but it certainly wouldn't be Rush with one of
Right.
the premier drummers of all time. Um, those are the two that kind of stand out. What about you?
Um, yeah, I was fortunate enough to see them several times. With my brother, and my dad was a virtuoso piano player, so
Okay.
music. My brother got listening to music, but I got playing the music version of that. And I think I went to more Rush concerts with my dad than I did with my brother. And I don't exactly know. I think it was the album after Moving Picture Signals I went to, and I saw the one before there. I think it was a Clockwork Angels.
Yeah.
That would be because he's just that those songs just suck you in. Um, and speaking of Fleetwood Mac, I did get to see Fleetwood Mac after they reunited again, which was another phenomenal experience. And when you talk about songs that affect you, there's the song "You Too," with or without you, is such a grindy song because it's about being there and not being there.
Yeah.
And it hits a lot of home for my past, where you're like, music grabs you and life grabs you. And more importantly for me back then was music. I would have, look, I recorded, we had a record coming out. I've been in studios. I did this.
And those songs are so classic, and that impact, and that is the joy that I have. And for him, and I've done this, and there's been a few shows I've just gone by myself because it's like, you know what, I'm going to go in, I'm going to watch him, and I'm going to leave,
Yeah.
and I'll maybe grab a drink or not, or just stand by the bar and just watch. And
Yeah.
I don't care, because it's like, to me, it's not about the whole event. It's about that kind of almost that one-on-one experience that I can have. And yeah, it goes back, and it will forever to this day have a impact on me as far as what my interest is. As much as the heavy stuff I listen to, my top vocalists are Jeff Tate, Jeff Scott Soto, and John Bush.
Oh,
And they have been, and they're locked, and they won't change. And just while it's the, Todd, De La Torre, right? He's a fantastic singer for the new version of Queensryche. They just played last night or the night before, House of Blues Anaheim. Queensryche doing the EP.
that's a tough question to think about, bands that I wish I could have seen that I didn't see. I saw Anthrax. I actually saw Guns N' Roses when Appetite came out at a little club in Reseda,
Okay.
which was amazing. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like the sweaty, small little, like,
Right.
I was like, whoa, in your face, which was cool. And that's what I like to go back to, is like those early days.
Yeah.
I think that heavy metal did that to us in a sense, because
Yeah.
it gave us that rebellion that it's like when you send me your link to your show on Tuesdays, I'm like, oh, good driving home music, and
Yeah.
I plug it in and turn in my truck and turn it up. And it's like what it did to me back then is like, I got a funny story, and I'm sure everybody did this when Queensryche first came out, and they had I think it was the EP of Queen of the Reich and a
Yeah.
couple other songs. And I had the cassette that went into I had a truck, and I think I wore two or three of them out because I kept replaying Queen of the Reich over and over again, because I
Yeah.
could not get over those voices that he nailed. And then as I was just joining a band, I think I was 17, and the bass player of the band was like, "Oh, you think that's good? Listen to this. Listen to Rob Halford do this
Yeah.
on Green Manalishi, or listen." And I think it even goes back all the way to Deep Purple, um, with, and I can't think of his name, but you know, that they were hitting those notes, and but there was something about Jeff Tate that was like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
I was so enthralled with it. I was like, I got to hear it again. I got to hear it again. I got to hear it again. But there was something, I think, and for me, that music did, and it didn't turn me into an asshole. And it didn't, you know, like you remember back in the day when we would go see the concerts in the '80s, it was the we were all devil worshippers, and it
Right.
was
Yeah.
all this
Everything
and
was
that.
bad and evil.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I like Iron Maiden, 666, Number of the Beast, and it was like they were just lyrics. They had nothing to do with that. I think, um, and I'm gonna just paraphrase a couple of them, which makes me giggle. I think Kiss was, um, oh, I can't think of it. Not now,
Knights
convinced
under
it.
Satan's
Rush,
service,
yeah,
right?
and
Yeah.
Rush was ruler under Satan's house.
Yeah.
And you think back, and I remember because they would Bible thump, and they were having the cross, and I just kind of looked at it, and I just giggled because that never had any effect on me as far as
No.
that changed my religion or my thought about, you know, desecrating things. I was like, no, this music just speaks to me. This music makes me feel good. Um, I was fortunate enough to see there was like several years back, Dave had done a birthday show at the Forum, and he sold tickets for $50 a piece. And I scored a couple of them and went, and they played for 3.5 hours. They had Paul Stanley come out, Jack Black, Perry Farrell, all kinds of different musicians come out and do
Yeah.
different jams. They're talking about Anthrax and Charlie Benante playing with Pantera. He was just on, there's a channel on YouTube called Drumeo,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
Charlie was just on it last week, and he talks about how he learned these songs from Pantera that they actually took. They got a hold of the old engineer and took the samples and mixed it in with that kit. And he said he learned it verbatim, like he didn't alter anything. He
Mhm.
wanted to play it just like Vinny played it. It's a really, if you get a chance, it's a really good interview with him, and how he talks about his passion, because he says, you know, at first, you know, people were like, oh, two of, like, I don't know if I want to see that, you know, it's
Right.
not really the original members, you know, it might be the singer and the bass player, but this and that. And he talks about that. He goes, don't, we don't want people to come in here with an expectation. Come and
Mhm.
check it out, see what you think. And he said it started, and he goes, now it's the biggest thing ever.
He had a instrumental impact on me as far as music and being a vocalist and following that line. And still to this day, I saw him. I missed him because I was out of town. He came through a couple of weeks ago, so about a year ago, and he tours the world still. You know,
Yeah.
he's you know early 60s now. I think he might be 63, maybe, but he had, you know, some heart issues a couple of years ago. He came back from that. He still plays, you know, close to 20 song set. He'll play all the classic Queensryche songs. He'll play a few from his, you know, Jeff Tate records, and he's phenomenal. And it's
Yeah.
you know, I sort of like, yes, I will always be in town when he comes through, but that's one where, you know, how many more years is he going to do this? You know, maybe a couple. You know,
Yeah.
there was an element of risk and just kind of just the carefree attitude, which in a way just kind of shaped, you know, I think kind of who we are now as far as just what our interests were. And you know, I wasn't sitting home every night reading, you know, reading my textbooks and you know, I was fine. I got through all that stuff, but it's like, you know, you gotta have fun. So let me just name a couple bands and interested in your feedback on bands I wish I had seen, but I didn't.
Mm,
U2, haven't seen them. Still a chance. Rush, I never saw. I
of
wish I did.
course.
They're on Phil's record label, and I'm drawing a blank right now. So this is really good airwaves when I can tell you the band and I can tell you the record label. But if you
Well, you're
know
not doing your
Phil
Tuesday
Anselmo,
show.
no, if you know Phil Anselmo, you know,
Yeah.
he has a record label and it's a lot of more kind of grungy, dingy, you know, kind of slow bands like that. that kind of just have dredge, and that was one of them. And they were a good band, and they were, you know, they performed well. We saw probably two songs at the end, and I didn't go to my first show until we went to a club, and we saw like Dark Angel and Slayer at Radio
Oh,
City. We in fun. We would ride our bikes up there. And this is even when, and don't do this at home, kids, but you could walk into the liquor store that was right near Radio City, which now is probably like a restaurant or, you know, a car wash, who knows, off Ball Road. And I forget the other cross street. And you just walk in there, and you would think that you could have been an infant and bought alcohol.
mm.
Like they just didn't care, you know, and for whatever reason, we thought California Coolers was the way to go when we were like 14. So we'd get that, and we couldn't make it through much because, you know, we were riding our bikes, but also we were little, you know, like snot-nosed kids. But you'd go in $5 maybe for the show. And that was one of the very first Dark Angel shows I remember ever seeing. And then there's like Slayer, Metallica came through there. I remember it scared the hell out of us, Stormtroopers of Death. When
Oh
we were
yeah.
that young, they played, I think, 7 nights in a row. Mind you, Radio City, somehow I got from Pink Floyd to Radio City. But in that, oh yeah, because I was kind of a wimp. I didn't go out. So I remember the only time, and this was a show I was so glad I got to see. This was a couple years older. I was 16, I think it was a junior in high school. And I'll make this 10 seconds. Back in the olden days, when you transferred schools and didn't move, you had to sit out an entire season. So I
Yes.
was all into playing football. So I went from a Catholic high school in Long Beach. I transferred for my junior and senior year. And you know, in hindsight, it probably wasn't a good decision, but that was fine. That's where I got to meet everybody in Garden Grove at Pacifica High School. And, you know, here we are today. I wasn't like really late, but I was late. And you go, hey, what's up? I'm good. Just trying to go to the vending machine. It was a long night. At the time, my dad had this big black Cadillac, and
Uh-oh.
they pulled into the gas station. And I'm
Uh-oh.
like, oh man, what's gonna happen? And he just rolls down the window, and he was tough like dads are, right? But it probably could have been a lot worse, and it wasn't. But I just remember at that time just going, oh man, hey, and I'm sure I didn't say hey guys, and just hey, how's it going? Good. How about you? They were going to mass, and so, you know, throw that Catholic guilt my way.
Of course.
Hey, so where were you? I go, well, I went to the show. Yeah, we know that. I go, well, I stayed at Chris's house. No, you didn't. I go, I didn't. And I don't remember if
Oh,
I said that, you know, where I was, but, you know, I'm sure they thought it was like just the worst kid ever and I was going to amount to nothing. And clearly I didn't. But at the time, it was just one of those things where, you know, you do stupid shit, you know, as a kid. And
absolutely.
there's many things that we've done that you probably look back and say, I don't know how the hell I got away with that. We never did anything illegal. You know,
No.
we probably did some things that were kind of foolish. You know, was it anything that would have been life threatening? No, but you know,
No.
there was an element of risk and just kind of just the carefree attitude, which in a way just kind of shaped, you know, I think kind of who we are now as far as just what our interests were.
Uh, but like you, which is I think why we have a lot of in common is that although I'm a drummer, Jeff Tate and Queensryche back in that day when that song came out was like, I'm in. Where else do I need to go now? Because
Yeah,
it guided me through. Okay, I need to find this and I need to find that, and like I wanted to even sing like him. I think I might have even tried. Maybe I sounded like shit, but
hey, you
um,
tried it.
you know, you're a vocalist. You know it and did it and nailed it. And I'm like I said, I'm a drummer. I can sing harmonies. I can sing backup, but when I heard that, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is
Yeah,
the coolest thing I've ever heard. And like even Isabel and I was playing it for Isabel the other night. There's a live, I think they have a live in Japan back in 86, where they do a handful of their songs and
yeah,
you're just like live and it was
nice.
just phenomenal. And you're right, Dave and Taylor had um this connect.
Yeah,
But Rush was really my go-to, which led me into all these different types of music that people turned me on to over the years.
If they squeezed you in there. And that was scary because you hear this stormtroopers of death. And later on, clearly it's more, you know, it's not a joke, but it was humorous metal, right? With Billy Milano, and we're talking about Scotty and you know,
Yeah,
Anthrax folks, you know,
Charlie
earlier.
played drums too.
Charlie on the drums, you know, we're gonna be out on YouTube, on Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard. Maybe we'll pull in a guest or two every once in
Yeah,
a while. We'll have different topics. Sure, we're going to be talking
absolutely.
music, current events, our interest, our likes, our dislikes.
And
Again,
shit.
it's going to be, you know, just talking as much as we can. It kind of came
Yeah,
together
I am too.
quick, you know, kind of
I am
came
too.
together quick. But
Yeah.
you know what? It's all a matter of if it was meant to be, it was going to come together. So here we are
I
in this fateful evening. And again, you know, if you're listening to this, you can catch us on Instagram at Talking Show, and probably have something on Facebook, but we'll see. Definitely on YouTube, you want to be able to subscribe and like it, and tell your friends or not. But if you enjoy it, leave a comment. And if you don't, leave a comment. It's not going to stop us from doing it. And I was right there. I wasn't creative enough when I was probably 11, 12, 13. I guess I could have been, and maybe I wasn't as devious as I could have been, of just sneaking out or saying I'm going over to my buddy's house, because one of my friends, Chris, his older sister, took him to all these shows. So we were all the same age then. So, you know, I bypassed all that.
this music
Yeah,
makes me want to be like, it makes me feel alive, and seeing live music. Like, I remember seeing an Iron Maiden show at Long Beach Arena, and Vinnie Vincent Invasion opened for him,
I
which
was
was
there. Yeah.
really weird. Did
Yep.
you go to
Yeah,
that?
I did. Yeah.
That was the weirdest,
Yeah.
it's weirdest thing. And that goes all the way back to the Ticketmaster thing, because I was doing the Ticketmaster that day, and I was like, second row, those are mine. That it is flourished to this day. I'm turning 57 this year, and every time I hear heavy metal music, when you're playing it, it's full volume. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
just me. I want to
Absolutely.
hear it. I love it.
No, for sure. It's yeah, I look back and yeah, Queensryche obviously had a major
Oh,
impact on me, Jeff Tate. And I remember that EP, and you know, I was doing the same thing. I would rewind it and listen to it again, and really not knowing like how it was possible. And he had a instrumental impact on me as far as music and being a vocalist and following that line. And still to this day, I saw him. So the next morning, I walked to work, probably about a mile. I have my Injustice for All t-shirt on.
nice.
I had long hair, you know, so just this degenerate walking down Valley View Boulevard to the Texaco right there, and I grabbed a work shirt. I think it said like Tom was the name. I just grabbed, you know, a gas station work shirt, and I'm there, and there was a you know, a buddy of mine that was working to it, and I was late.
Okay, so I know we talked about this last week. I think the first introduction to real metal was "Accept Fast as a Shark" because of the double bass drum, and I thought, how's that? How is that? I mean, I had one bass drum when I was a kid, and I'm like, is he
Yeah.
doing like a floor tom and a bass drum thing? And I listened to it over and over again, and I thought, wow, this is so cool. Which is why I eventually went to playing double bass drum, is because of that song.
Nice.
Just a stellar, and God, I wish I'd done a little more homework. I don't know what year that came out. I'm sure it's really early 80s. But what an amazing song.
No, absolutely. And that's true. You know, you said it before, and I would have to agree. It's certainly one of the not the earliest metal song, but when it comes
No,
out, just having that sound, that those drums, and the scratching of the vinyl to start the song, and the
right?
scream. And
Yeah,
just so we keep it consistent, I'm saying it, Udo. Every
yeah.
show we mention Udo. So
Yes, we do, don't we?
yeah, that's awesome. And I'll pick up one, and we'll kind of just go back and forth and trade off. How's that?
Sure. Absolutely.
They're on the road now
Yeah.
with their new record, but 50 years in between releases. And is he the same singer? No, he's not. And you
No.
mentioned that before, but certainly in what stands out. But when you break down, and I'll take this as an opportunity to segue into a singer that arguably these three together, and there's a fourth and fifth, and I'm not ranking them until I do, but you have Dio, you have Halford, and you have Bruce Dickinson. Brings
Yeah.
me to my next selection.
Mm.
And I'm going to cheat a little, Stephen. My
Go ahead.
apologies.
No, do it.
The entire Peace of Mind release.
Oh, yeah, I
All
agree
of it.
100%. I
Now,
agree. Well, and interesting when you just mentioned UFO, it's like when I think of UFO, I only think of one song, Lights Out in London. Like what other songs? And I'm not trying to badmouth them. I'm
no,
just saying that's what I think of when I think of that band. But when I think of Iron Maiden, I think of wow. I mean, a plethora of. And if anybody hasn't already known at this point, I'll profess Iron Maiden is my number one favorite heavy metal band.
so this brings back one of my first memories. And there's two. We talk about again how songs and bands really kind of seeded themselves early on in my youth and propelled me down this path. One of them from 1981's Mob Rules,
Oh,
Black Sabbath, and the song Turn Up the Night.
oh my
I
God.
remember hearing the beginning of that and just thinking, what is this?
Yeah.
This is incredible. And I'm gonna have to go back and revisit that. And again, there's I think I may need to get a Killer's poster for somewhere in the old studio. But yeah, there
Yeah.
was it's almost, if you look at it, and this could be a future show, top bands that had a second singer. But maybe there's an emphasis just to say for those bands that had, a first singer, could you almost say that if Maiden stepped with Paul Di'Anno, they would not have been the Maiden of today. They would have
Right.
been, a UFO type level probably band. They would have stuck kind of in that range. They would have been successful. People would have liked them for sure. But it definitely took a different path with Bruce Dickinson. But no, I like that.
Well, and interesting when you just mentioned UFO, it's like when I think of UFO, I only think of one song, Lights Out in London. Like what other songs? And I'm not trying to badmouth them. I'm
No,
just saying that's what I think of when I think of that band. But when I think of Iron Maiden, I think of wow. I mean, a plethora of. And if anybody hasn't already known at this point, I'll profess Iron Maiden is my number one favorite heavy metal band. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
anyhow.
No, that's great. All right. So this got a little tough, and and that's why I'm purposely not doing a true 5 to 1 or 1 to 5 or any of those. We're just naming five because it would be, it's like, it's like kids or your favorite, whatever. It's hard to pick.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
the next one I'm going to throw in here is the song that I remember hearing and this is another one of those memories that stands out because I had a brother, still have, 3 years older than me. For our family issue show, we'll save this topic, but
Sure.
we had different interest. But this is the one time truly in my 50 plus years on earth that there was this intersection. And he was listening to a cassette, maybe it was a CD, but he was listening to Fair Warning. And specifically the song Unchained came on from Van Halen. 1981. We're all kind of, in the 81, 82,
Wow.
with Peace of Mind in 83. 11 years old in 81. All right. I just came out. I just gave my age, right? But that song is my all-time favorite song.
Really? Interesting.
And I play that a fair amount on my show as well. but that opening line, the guitar, Eddie Van
Mm-hmm.
Halen, and
Mm-hmm.
just that power and just the energy. And there was just something about it. Again, to this day, I smile when I hear that song. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at, I have a number of vinyl records that I can switch out, but they're displayed. And I'm looking right now at the fair warning record. And if you think about it, you stare at the album cover, you go, what the hell is going on in that album cover? And really up until I put it on the wall about a year and a half ago, I never really studied the album cover. And I can just go back to that day, 18 months ago and said, there's no reason for me to study that album cover again. There's nothing redeeming
Mm-hmm.
from it. It doesn't really make any sense. And if they did it purposely, it's more the matter of the story and and the heart and the meaning of everything is
Right.
in the music. The album
Yeah.
cover doesn't mean anything. Might as well just
Right.
be black, but there's a few bands have already done it. But definitely Van Halen Unchained 1981 off Fair Warning.
Oh, yeah. And I probably just an off topic as far as Van Halen's concerned. My favorite Van Halen album is Van Halen 2.
Okay.
Um, and just that there's, I think there's a presence of more drumming on that with Alex. And we'll segue off of it quickly, but since Van Halen's talking, yeah, Unchained, that guitar intro is, oof, you know, every time I hear it, I'm the same way. The volume goes up. Well, actually, I can do it on my steering wheel now. I don't have to reach
Yeah,
over and
absolutely. Yeah.
turn it up. And I
Okay.
believe this is off their first album. It must be, but the song Run for Cover
Okay.
uh, again goes back to my passion of double bass drumming. And I heard kind of a funny story that there's this metal thing coming up with Jack Russell of Great White, couple other bands. They're like, oh, and Quiet Riot's playing. I'm like, is there any original members in that band still?
I don't
Kind of
think
made me.
so. Yeah.
I don't either. Maybe like one of the bass players, but it just kind of made me giggle. But like, I don't know how many tickets they'll sell to that. Nothing bad about it, but if I want to see
Right.
Quiet Riot, I want to see the original band with Kevin DeBro. But that song, Run for
Agreed.
Cover, is such a great, just in your face heavy metal song that has that rock and double bass drum. That there was a sound that in that era that it was like a really snappy snare sound. There's a couple other bands that have done it, but that just railroads. Like you put that song on, you're like, whoa. I mean, again, and that'll segue into another band I'm sure both of you and I are going to talk about next, but or song. But such a great band back in the day. And they played Us Festival
They
back
did.
in,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that song, so
Oh yeah, you got
I
to
need
check it
to,
out. It's
yeah,
great.
I'll write it down and check it out.
It's a great song. It's a great song.
Yeah. So moving along, and I kind of toyed with which one would go next, but since it's not a true order, I'm just going to pick the one that's next on my list. And some say is the greatest metal record of all time,
Mm.
Metallica and Master of Puppets.
Oh, yeah.
Again, it's there was a friend on Facebook that made a post earlier today is which record did you listen to the most during high school?
Yep.
And I didn't even have to hesitate. It was Master of Puppets. So, there's not much more to be said. It's just a phenomenal track in itself. The record is incredible. Just the sound, the energy, everything about it. Um, Loved it. Love it to this
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. And quite a long song if you think about it,
Mhm.
but it has that what I like about Metallica or back then about not that I don't like them now, but how their songs had several bridges and several nuances to one song. And that was just I remember when I first heard it, it pushed me back. I was listening to I had a little truck back then. It pushed me back in my chair. I was like, what is
Yeah.
this? Whoa. Yeah, I ruined that one too. I had to actually I'm sure you had the same thing when you pull the cassette out and the tape got stuck and you're like, oh, that one's
Yep.
ruined. I got to get a new one.
Yeah. Try to save it, but yeah, it
what a
didn't work
great
most of the time.
no, yeah, try put a pencil in there and try to spin it back. But
Yeah,
what a great track. Oh my God, that whole album too is just phenomenal.
absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, we'll jump now to I think was an EP. And I know this is probably your most favorite singer. And this
Yeah.
doesn't again necessarily go in order, but when I first heard Queen's Reich and Queen of the Reich, I was like, what is going on here? And I know we kind of briefly talked about how
Yeah.
Halford, the singer for Deep Purple, kind of initiated that high scream, not falsetto, by the way. And when I heard that song, I was so blown away. Take Hold of the Flame. I have to throw another honorable mention. Um, there's that Live in Japan that they have that
Hmm.
it's so stellar. And that's when you're like, oh well, you hear it on the record or the EP, but when you see it live, you're like, it. And Krista Garmo's harmonies are higher than Jeff's. It's like, what is going
Yeah,
on?
absolutely.
What is going on there?
So that's wild, but also not wild because I had a feeling that you were gonna go to the EP. And again, the kind of synergy that we have on a lot of these bands is pretty awesome. Granted,
Yeah,
we're similar in age and we have similar likes, so to have overlap is really not that much of a stretch but when it comes down to like specifics on songs or singers, and in this case, the EP released in '82,
wow.
by the way. Um, Not recorded in the Bahamas, in Redmond, Washington. The track and all of this I love. You mentioned Queen of the Reich. You mentioned um, drew a blank right now, but that's okay. You mentioned all of them. The song that goes for me is Lady Wore Black.
Oh, I was just gonna say that.
And in that, just the kind of the pacing and just the build up in the song. And when it gets into the chorus, that is just classic Jeff Tate, where it's just
Right.
this strong, the lady wore black, and you just feel it. And again, everything about it. You talk about again the memories and what shaped us and where the path that we took.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I probably bored people that got into the truck with me because I probably replayed Queen of the Reich over and over again. I don't know if you remember Noggles back in the day. It was a little taco joint,
Yes. Hmm.
for whatever reason, metal people used to hang out there and play music
Yes.
metal,
Yep.
and that's my memory of it is Noggles and late and not only Lady War Black, which is a phenomenal tune. If you listen to those vocals, how pitchy and perfect he is, how he brings it up and down
Yeah.
it gives me goosebumps. I mean, music, it's interesting real quick. I'm going to segue out real quick. I saw Godsmack last night and it was called the Vibes Tour. And it was a little toned down. It wasn't in your face
Yeah.
Godsmack. And Sully was sitting there. He had acoustic guitar and he was talking about how songs and music resonate to you. He's like, you can play this crappy note, or you can play this great note, or you can play this, and or you can play them together, which led them into Nothing Else Matters. And it was
Okay.
interesting because I have music is passion to me. Music can pull me into so many different directions. I have a wide variety of music I listen to. Preferably, I really like female singers. Why I don't know.
Mhm.
Like the other day I was driving home and I heard Pink singing a song and I was like, listen to that voice.
Oh
It
yeah,
was like
absolutely.
just out of this world. But going back to Queen's Reich, that tape, I think I owned like 4 or 5 of them.
Sure.
Uh, I'll that memory of those songs is emblazoned into my brain.
Absolutely.